Hey everyone, how you doing today? Thought I'd show you a quick update on the Helios and kind of go over some of the comments and questions that I asked about the Helios and how it should be. And for the most part, I did. One of the major questions was what hull material should it be built out of, and I would say the majority of people believe it should be in carbon. Some of the comments, however, said carbon and maybe secure or use steel or something like that for like important areas like engineering sections that are holding like real parts and things like that in it. So with that being said, I am kind of going with carbon for the most part. And once I get to the engineering areas, I will think about trying to reinforce them, make them a little more secure, maybe even from certain angles, like outer angles of the ship, so you don't, say your shield goes down and getting chased by, I don't know, a bunch of drones or enemy CV or something like that, and so I don't like instantly like blow up an engineering section or something like that. So I will definitely consider that and think about that. So what I've been kind of working on right now is the front side of this, and I rebuilt these thruster housings again, and these are actually placed symmetrically on the creation, but how they mount is differently or is different on both sides of the ship because both sides are different on the front. So this is version 2, and I don't think I'm necessarily done with my versions here, but this one, it does embrace some XL thrusters in here. So for XL thruster for lift and reverse up in this section. And then I've been kind of messing with this, and this is not finalized yet by any stretch. I'm trying to build some kind of convincing or sort of convincing framework that looks like it holds the whole thruster module in place, and that's also picking a place to put a turret. Now, another thing I was originally thinking I was going to use a bunch of sentry guns for its defense and save the CPU, but then a lot of people had called out and said, hey, those sentry guns, their range is really limited, and on a big ship like this, it probably won't work out so good, maybe in some places, but you're going to want some regular turrets on here as well. So yeah, I'm definitely considering that. I'm trying to pop in some regular turrets in here as well. So that's kind of taking place. Now these thrusters only, like these front thrusters here, they only cover strafing. And unfortunately, I really wanted to put a big XL thruster in here. And on this design, I just couldn't fit it. They're just too deep, basically. But since I first built these and I moved them around a couple times, it's maybe possible now that I could stick in a larger strafing thruster up here, but right now I've got it set up so it can hold 3 on the front, and keep in mind it's probably going to have some strafing thrusters in the back, larger thruster pods as well. So that's how it's going there. On the front side here, it's a little different layout than what the Helios is. Obviously the Helios, if we take a look at the dimensions, this hangar door is filling up like most of the space, and then like 3/4 of the space about, and then the bridge and this little upper room was only consuming a small area of that. Now on the new design, because it's kind of split down the middle, this area has to be a little bit bigger over here. So it's got the same idea going on. It's just stretched out more, essentially. So it does have a bridge that's going to be very similar to that of the bridge on the regular Helios. I wanted to have more of a down-looking way on it, and I might, when I get into doing the interior in this area and stuff, I might modify the glass work here and maybe expand it out a little bit more for a little bit more visibility. And also, of course, I could raise the glass up a little bit. The reason why I don't like tall windows on most of these builds, simply because having a window more like this has a way of making the creation look bigger. And if you have really tall windows, it kind of makes it look like it's not as big. And you can see that on some actual buildings in the world too. Like if you see a bunch of these thin windows, you assume each window layer is another floor. Or if you had windows that were 2 stories high, and you would probably still assume each window layer is a floor, but maybe that's not true anymore, and it just looks like it's smaller, or not as many floors or something like that. So I tend to like to go with like the skinnier windows usually. So in this area, I've got a place to put two more XL reverse thrusters. So literally, because these are holding XL thrusters out on the thruster pods, and I can blow these out and I can put in like smaller thrusters here too. And I might have to do that when I release the ship for the sake of CPU. But all in all, it's allowing on this version at least, it's allowing a total of 4 XL reverse thrusters, which is significantly greater than that of what the original Helios was doing, which only had 4 of the smaller thrusters in place. So it'll have a lot more stopping potential, put it that way, if you want to put the CPU into it. I mean, it's going to be optional. So I'm going to try to make this as versatile as possible. So going around to the other side of the ship here, again, it's got kind of some framework that I've been working on, and I was kind of like looking at this section here. It's like, well, I could wall it all off here, but it doesn't really need to be all walled off. It's just kind of a waste of blocks. It's not really doing anything, having any wall there. So what I wanted, but I didn't want nothing there either. So I've been kind of playing around with trying to do some kind of like framework here that would sort of connect to this thruster pod. I'm not exactly liking how I'm connecting the thruster pods right now. I kind of wanted it to look a little bit more like a chassis of like a dune buggy or something, like you're connecting the front axles to it, and I'm not really pulling that off. One of my ideas too was to try to make it look like it would swivel. Obviously it's not going to, but it kind of fake stuff there. So that's kind of what I've been working on. And to be honest, yesterday and the night before that, I got kind of sick actually, so I'm feeling a whole lot better today. But I didn't. I slept a lot, or tried to sleep a lot the other day, so I didn't get quite as much done on this as I wanted to. But still, I got this area built out. Now the ship did get a little bit bigger in size, not much, but this whole front edge here, I decided to take the flight deck out above the this front section a little bit more. So it did grow in length by about 2 to 3 blocks, somewhere right in there, right on the front. And also that allowed for a little bit more of an angle here too. So from top down, it kind of looks like that right now, which it's a little funky. But I kind of like the asymmetrical thing. Of course, I could set up this side to be the same angle as the other side if I wanted to, but I kind of like how it's coming more to a point on this one corner, and that allowed for this area to not be as wide. I was trying to figure out how to fill this in and have the and have like the same kind of thing going on as what the Helios had. So it's kind of the same. It's just, like I said, stretched out more to fill in the space. And that's kind of what I got done with the ship. So it wasn't a huge amount of stuff there. So I will be focusing on, obviously lightweight hull, mostly carbon substrate, except for areas that I think would want a little bit more protection. I'll probably still have some sentry guns on here, but for the most part, I'm going to try to use traditional turrets, maybe just minigun turrets or something like that. Cheap turrets for drone protection. As in shielding and stuff like that, I got to get to that whole area yet, but I'm planning on having like a core room somewhere out in this general section here, kind of like the first Helios had, and then in the back of the ship, again, some pretty big, large thruster pods are going to be back over here that are going to hold, of course, all these big thrusters, additional strafing thrusters and lift thrusters and you name it, whatever I can fit in there, plus 6 to 8 medium shield parts and 8 small shield parts. Maybe I'll just go with 8 medium shield parts too, and just, I don't have to populate them all in there stock either, so I can just kind of leave placeholders in place, and if you want more shielding, you can put in more shielding. But I do not, there's a comment suggesting maybe a large shield part or even a fusion reactor too, and it's like, those things take up an incredible amount of space, and even though I do have quite a bit of space back here, the height and everything, it just, I don't know, once I build out the rooms, I'll see what's in there, because I got to put in some main parts. I got to put in like a shield and a warp drive and, you know, that kind of thing too. So I'll have to figure out exactly how much I can fit in these rooms, essentially. And I don't want the rooms to go out crazy beyond the borders of the ship by a whole lot, but I do want kind of a flange on the back of it, and I was just kind of playing around with a little bit of blocks, like sticking out the edges, and I was kind of wondering if I shouldn't, like the Helios had these thruster pods tucked underneath the flight deck, and right now I'm at least experimenting with trying to do this in a little bit more of a nacelle-looking approach, just to see how it would look. So these are kind of, they're not tucked under right now. I don't have anything in here yet. It was just, again, trying to play with blocks. But ultimately speaking, though, I really wanted to have a maximum allowance of the same amount of forward thrusters as what the Helios had, which was 10 XL thrusters. So it's going to have to wrap around like maybe thruster, and then like 3 more kind of like angled in. Maybe I'll have to figure out how this all going to come together once I get to the back of the creation. There's a lot of comments and recommendations, and I haven't really like been over everything yet. There's kind of a lot of info to take in. But what I can tell from the comments, though, is people are using the Helios in different ways, with different specifications and different ways they are using the ship. Like in my thing, I look at this as kind of a space barge, and I would give it more of a barge class. Like one of the suggestions would be to have like a control tower maybe on one side or the other, like a carrier. You know, that's good for a carrier, and someday again I probably will build another carrier. But this is it's just not really supposed to be that. It was just supposed to be kind of a big industrial cargo barge kind of thing. So having a big control tower on here would add a lot to, probably add a fair amount of blocks to it. And on a design like this, it would be extremely difficult to pull that off. Essentially, all this underneath area is utilized for these big module bays and things like that, or hangars or something. And if you had like a control tower on one side or the other, is you're going to have to connect it to the inside of the ship and things like that. So you kind of need like area below the control tower for some hallways and things like that. It's just not going to have that space available to it the way this is designed. So, and it would add more size class to the ship that doesn't need to be there. And if I did put a control tower in a place that would be visually appearing or look halfway decent, it would have to be kind of like edge back over here, but that's so far out of the way of where all the stuff is, really. And it would interrupt the module bays, or I'd have to make the ship deeper and have another layer over here of like living space below the tower at least. So it's not going to work out for a control tower. And it's, again, I'm trying to make this one more efficient than the original Helios in every way I can figure out, essentially. So it's going to be lighter. It's going to be capable of having more thrust in some of the directions. It's going to have, it holds a couple more modules. It's going to have a little bit more storage in it. Not a lot. Again, the modules are where your storage is mostly going. However, I mean, there's, but I am kind of steering towards a little bit more storage than what the Helios had. The Helios, I think, had one 320K storage bay and one 320K ammo bay. Did I have that? I'm not even sure if I had the ammo bay. Did it? Did I do that? Was that a thing I did? Let me get up the right stats here. Yeah, okay, so it does have a 320K ammo and storage. Okay, so this one might double that. So it might have, not double the ammo bay. In fact, the ammo bay is far too large probably on the Helios for the guns that it's doing. But I'll figure something out. But I'll have a little bit more storage and probably a little bit bigger built-in production area. But again, I don't want to use a lot of CPU for it. In fact, I'm trying to keep the CPU to kind of a minimal, because a ship like this needs so much CPU involved in its thrust power that it chews up like a Core 9 2.1 million CPU setup really quickly, especially when you start getting into a bunch of XL thrusters and things like that. And plus, it's going to have a shield and probably some shield parts. It'll probably have a couple stock in it. It all depends how the CPU plays out. You know, I'm not there yet. I don't have everything installed. Some of these thrusters that you see here now are going to be downgraded or just removed from the build and be placeholders, like especially these reverse thrusters here, and potentially, again, that's another reason I kind of wanted to modify these thruster pods a little bit more. Is I would like to be able to get in, I don't know, maybe 4 reverse smaller thrusters in here, and then be able to put in like the big XL thrusters instead. But either way, I think it's going to be able to be more maneuverable, especially because of the lighter chassis too. So it should turn better, should stop better, should be able to carry a little more because of a couple more module bays. Now, granted, there's been other modified versions of the Helios, and some of those I like a lot, especially the one that got rid of these center sections here and instead had 6 module bays. And there is a version out there modified by another author that does exactly that, which I think is actually more practical than the original Helios. As in these bays here, they never really worked out very good. I had this part down in here, and it kind of screwed up the bay, and it's a weird size, and I don't know. I didn't think they were very useful or practical. It's hard to dock things in there. People have made some modules to fit these, though, and I feel kind of bad about that. I should have tweaked this out before I really release specs to these in between bays. I don't really think they're needed, really. Now, another comment that was brought up too is there's some modules that have essentially like a hanger. We're not talking dropship modules, but regular modules that have like a hangar bay on one side of them, and they were asking, well, can the modules also join to the hangar? And it's like, to be honest, I cannot come up with any way to do that. I mean, the hangar is going straight across the ship here, but the only way I could have modules come into here would be like this one would have to come in and be facing the hangar in this direction, which would be I would have to cut out all this chunk of the ship to be able to do that. Or, you know, if it came onto the back of the hangar, same thing goes there. I mean, it would have to be shorter, and the modules would have to dock in this way, but I can't really do that and have the module bays and the thruster pods all back there and to do that at the same time. So, kind of a problem there. I just don't really know of any good way to do that besides just create some other kind of like long or really wide ship, or the hangar, just restore the hangar that goes, or the big area that goes right down the middle of the ship, just like the original Helios. And I was trying to, and I kind of looked at that as kind of inefficient because it's just kind of a lot of space here that's not really used for anything. I liked it, but it's, you know, again, kind of a lot of walking and transporting things around, and I don't know, you know, it's one of those dilemmas where it's like, I kind of like the size of the hangar. Now, one other option I might be doing too is right now I've got these ramp doors for the hangar doors, and I might investigate lowering the hangar down one more block row and potentially replacing these with force fields. So how do you feel about force fields? I think that might work out all right as well. I'm not so worried about the defense of it. And as of hit points, these little doors here don't have very much hit points whatsoever. So not much different than no hit points at all when you're talking about like CV damage ratios and things like that. So they're just there for airtight border basically, and a force field does that as well. If I did have force fields, I could probably change this around and shape it a little bit more so it's got a little bit more of a, doesn't look as square. I could probably round off the edges, or it would of course have to be vertical and not slanted like it is. So it's one of the things. When I get to the hangar doors, that'll be like another little project in itself, doing that up, and then I'll go on from there. So I don't know what else to say at the time. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on like this kind of framework thing. And again, like I am planning on modifying these hangers, and the angle here may change so it comes out a little bit more, so this doesn't look so wonky kind of going into it the way it is right now. And it's possible I might add additional beams down here to make this look like it's stronger. And I kind of I like the idea of the whole industrial frame thing, and it's very fitting with what the Helios is supposed to be, at least. So if I don't have to put in a wall and can put in frame pieces, it's kind of like the what I rather do, and it's less blocks in the process. Like these frame walls here. I mean, think of all the in-between blocks that aren't there because of it. So it's just a little bit lighter setup, I guess you could say. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to give you a good once over on where I'm at with the Helios right now, and this has kind of been my main project. I still haven't got to this yet. I wanted to do it badly yesterday, but I felt like crap. Later on last night, I did feel better, but then I looked at this and was like, do I want to do this right now? And I'm like, nah. And I went right over and started working on like the front area over here and trying to get that dialed in because it was bugging me that it wasn't there. And until I'm basically, put it this way, my motivation factor on this ship is far more than the SV, Captain's yacht at the time. But that does not mean that I'm not going to finish that SV. It's already got most of it done. I just got to build a interior, and it'll probably take a couple hours, and I can get that thing finished up. And then I can get that to the workshop as well. But yeah, this is kind of the main project. And also, I got to say, I was pretty happy about the number of comments I got on this. It's over the course of the last while, views and everything have steadily dropped. And it's just like, I'm assuming people are just kind of either get annoyed with my videos or just kind of been moving on away from Empyrion. And I was kind of glad to see a lot of interest perk up when I said something about the Helios. Yeah, I want to put my heart and soul in it, try to make the best I can. It's just, I mean, some things are just kind of, I don't want to like shoot down people's ideas like control towers and having like a hangar for all the modules to dock into, or even some of them. It's just I'm trying to explain why it would be problematic to do some of these things. And again, as I do look at this too, I believe like the Helios was size class 14. This one's probably going to be less. It's probably going to be less. I don't exactly know where it's going to be, but I would assume somewhere between size class 10 and 12, if I would just take a ballpark guess right now. But we'll see how it comes out in the end. And then, of course, I got to balance the CPU, try to give it the best stock thrust, and try to allow as much upgrades as possible. And there are some people, granted, this is kind of meant to be a space carrier, but there are some people that may want to land it on the ground, and that's why I was trying to give it, the option to have some kind of decent lift thrust as well on the ship. And keep in mind, this is just front pods, and there's going to be the larger ones back in the rear of the ship. But I'm also well aware that this thing does not land very good. Now, the one option I've got to try to make the landing a little bit better, like I got some landing gear here right now. Maybe if I drop that landing gear down another block or two, it would have a little more ground clearance when it's sitting on the ground. And, of course, I don't think you'll ever find enough flat ground to put something like this on in the game unless you built a landing pad for it. So it's always going to be wonky. It's always going to be tilted, or part of it's one of the legs is on a hill or of some origin, and so it's never really going to land very good unless there is some extremely flat planets out there that I just have never come across. So it's always going to be problematic. But the further these landing gear go down from the hull of the ship, I believe the better landing potential it would have. The problem is, if I extend these down to where I think they would need to be for the landing to work pretty decent, when it's flying around in space, I think it's going to look like a giant coffee table. It's kind of got that coffee table top, and you got the little coffee table legs down there, and I think it's going to look rather dumb flying in space. It's the same problem I've got with like the leg creations that I kind of like to do, but they just always, they look so cool sitting on the ground, and as soon as you take them off and fly them around, it just looks dumb because you can't retract the legs. They're just down there. And they just hang in from the ship, and with a surface looking like kind of like a coffee table and legs that probably look like a coffee table. It's just all I could think of is it's going to look like a flying coffee table if I put in like big legs that come down that would actually help with landing. And that's kind of a little issue I've got too. So I don't know. Again, I got to keep working things, and everything is subject to change a little bit. But also, one last thing too. In a couple of videos ago, I brought up that when you save a creation, like if I go to all in this, and if you go to save it, you have this option here to clear the pivot point. Now, there's something I didn't understand when I first cleared the pivot point, is that it resets like your center of the ship, which is great to do. And helpful, when you get it in game and everything like that, because, like the core of this ship is, I don't even know, somewhere, and it's probably not in the center. So that fixes that, but it is best to do that before you texture it. It depends on how you're texturing it, I suppose, but I do a lot of this thing where I'll use like this texture here, and then I'll mat out a lot of the squiggly lines that I don't think work for any good reason. So I'll get rid of a lot of the stuff and just kind of keep the smoother look. Well, if you reset the pivot point after you already textured it like this, it's going to reset all of this, and all of this is going to change, and it's going to screw it all up again. So it's best, if you're going to reset the pivot point, to do it before you texture your ship, or at least if you're doing what I'm doing with some of these textures, like this general method that I have done for a very long time now. If you do it after the fact, you're going to have to go over the whole hull, anything that's using this, and fix them all again. So you'll create a lot of extra work for yourself. So that's the last point. I'm just trying to cover everything that was brought up to me in the last little bit. Yeah, other than that, that's all I've got on this today. I hope to get some good solid work done over the weekend on this, and I would like to also get the little guy over here done to the little Captain's Yacht CV thing. I don't mind it. It's just with like an SV like this, I don't really know, besides some storage and some utility, I really don't know what to do with it. It's a great little thing to go down to the planet with and, store some loot or something like that, but it doesn't really have a key function. It's not like a miner or a combat creation. And being a combat creation, top mountable and bottom mountable like this, really can interfere if you're using turrets. It doesn't give you many places at all to put turrets on here, and that was a big problem I had with this ship. I really couldn't find any good place to put a turret on it. Everything's just used up. It's like I got thrusters here, so I can't really put a turret there. I got a door here. I got thruster pods and stuff. I guess the only place I really could stick some turrets on here, and maybe I will before it's done, it would look kind of bad, probably, but maybe in this area. But again, I think it's more of a transport utility creation, at least in this case. So anyway, I will shut up, and you all have yourself a great day. I'll talk to you later.